I read about a program that looks for women scientists, cancer research. And I thought, this is me, I need to be a part of this.
Cancer research is very personal to me. I've lost my mother to cancer. It was just 2 weeks after my mother's passing, and I attended the first researchers event. The event showed me that sisterhood and unity among women.
ResearchHERS is a movement because of the importance of community, having those friendships between people who are so passionate about cancer and who are so inspiring.
We all have a common bond as women and we support one another. One of the biggest challenges is just obtaining research funds in order to conduct our research.
Funding is the vital part of our careers as academic scientists.
In my research, I've worked with refugee and immigrant populations and trying to get them to get screened for breast and cervical cancer. I think it's important to reach underserved populations, and so the money that is raised by ResearchHERS is so important to help us to continue to do this work.
We are going to raise money that will help save lives. I'm so excited to raise the funds and help support the next breakthrough in cancer with you.
To my younger generation, I want to say we are all gifted with talents and skills and knowledge and experiences. So take what you know and make the change that you want to see.
We shouldn't give up, and we are not allowed really to give up.
We're all bringing so many new things to the table, and accumulation of all these new things is where the answer to cancer lies. That's where we'll find our cure.
Even when we're apart.
We are in this together.
And together, we'll find a cure.
Many thanks for being a part of the ResearchHERS Sisterhood.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Kathy Goss, and I'm the Vice President for Cancer Control in the North Central region at the American Cancer Society. This is just my second week on the job, and so I'm so happy to be here as your host for this half-hour program. Before we get started, I'd love to acknowledge and thank some of our key sponsors supporting this effort, including Cardinal Health, Lilly Oncology, Global Capital, Robert Thompson, Sam Tech, University of Michigan Rogel Cancer Center, and Assure Care. ResearchHERS is a movement that shines a light on the incredible discoveries made by women, empowers people who identify as women to support the American Cancer Society's National Research Program, which funds some of the brightest female minds in cancer research, and inspires the next generation of women to choose careers in science. Simply put, it's fundraising by women to support women-led research. Today, we'll hear from some of these amazing scientists who have been funded by the American Cancer Society. We'll also hear from some of the young women, the next generation of scientists who will be the future of this work. For me, ResearchHERS is all about empowering women and supporting each other. As a former researcher and American Cancer Society grantee myself, I know firsthand how vital that support is for launching and developing the research careers of women. We have come here together as advocates in support of women in science and those who will be inspired to become scientists, in support of those we've loved and lost to cancer, and in support of each other. Thank you for taking a stand and joining with us. Now, let's start with a question. Why are you here today? What inspires you to get involved? Go ahead and comment now in the chat box with your reason for being here today. While you do that, I am so excited to introduce our first guest. Dr. Catherine Sears is a researcher at Indiana University whose research focus is on lung cancer. She received a grant from the American Cancer Society in 2016.
Hi, I'm Dr. Catherine Sears, an assistant professor at Indiana University Simon Cancer Center, and welcome to my lab. The American Cancer Society and their funding has allowed these students and fellows into my lab to make sure they have an early opportunity to learn about research, to get their hands dirty, and to figure out whether they like this and what they like about it. I have been supported for the last 4 years on an American Cancer Society Mentored Research Scholar Grant, which has continued to let me grow in my research and how DNA repair impacts lung cancer early development. So over here we're going to join Washeen, who is making some cigarette smoke extract for us to test the cell response to this. So right now what we're doing is we're basically producing the cigarette smoke, of course in a contained area so we're not exposed. Now she's just taking off the top. Basically we had it in a vacuum, right? So if you compare that to what it looked like before, that's what's happening. So we look at that, we look at the DNA damage, we look at what it does to cells. So let's go look at some of our cells. These cells have a change that allow us to see whether DNA repair has happened or not. So you can see these are the cells. They're actually what we call adherent cells. They're adherent on the plate. These cells kind of grow in a group, but they don't all grow that way. Different cancer cells and different cells in our body grow differently. And so we look at this to see what our cells look like under the microscope, and then we can look at different modifications in different ways. We could treat cells like this with that cigarette smoke that we made and look at their response, whether they're dying, whether they're still alive, why they're dying. That's what we do. Well, thanks for coming to visit my lab today, and thank you all so much for the support you give to cancer research. It's meant a lot in my career development, and I can't wait to see where lung cancer research goes in the future.
Thanks for taking us into your lab, Dr. Sears. ACS invests in groundbreaking research and the work of researchers like Dr. Sears across the country. Nearly half of all of our grantees are women. In fact, we currently have more than $156 million invested in 299 women scientists across the country. Many of these investments are to women early in their careers, a critical time in their research trajectory. Beyond funding, female scientists face additional challenges like fewer opportunities for advancement, work-life balance, and lower funding amounts than their male counterparts. We talked to some of our female awardees for their take on the challenges they have faced in their careers, and we heard passionate responses from around the country. Let's take a look.
Implicit bias means that it's harder for women scientists to obtain grants, publish in top-tier journals, or being asked to speak at international meetings. You can see it how it can become a cycle where decreased national exposure translates to decreased likelihood of funding and diminished publications. And this is even more challenging for women of color. Science has had a reckoning in this last year regarding a lack of diversity in science. While steps are being taken to address this, lack of women of color as role models and leaders is a major problem for women in science.
It's very difficult to get research grants. As I see young, particularly Black women, but women in general, being more confident and understanding and realizing their worth and continuing to move forward, and that there's more equity and diversity in the people who offer grants and read proposals. And so hence, as a woman applying for research grants, you have a better chance of getting it because it's not just an old boys club. People say to us that, oh, you can have everything as a woman. I think you can have everything you want. You can't always have it all at the same time. It may come during different phases of your life. So I think try not to be discouraged and to reach out to your sisters because we are our best support.
Many ways that you are evaluated are whether you get to present your findings at conferences, as well as getting your manuscripts and grants reviewed. I do, I did see differential treatment at the level of getting acceptance for talks at conferences, as well as getting grants and paper review.
I also, of course, deal with work-home life balances like women in all sorts of careers do, not just science. And I have a 4-year-old daughter. The situation during the pandemic has been somewhat intense because we've lost a lot of our childcare support. The time management, the inability to plan longer term, I think that's been mentally a struggle for myself and for people in the lab, because so much of like our career and our work revolves around, detailed long-term plans. And so, not really knowing, are the kids going to be in school 2 weeks from now? Is the daycare going to be open? I mean, this is a true struggle that is continuing, even though now we're back at full lab density and we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're continuing to struggle with these issues.
The fact of the matter is that in science, once you've proven yourself, things are easier. But before someone takes a chance on you, it's nearly impossible to get traction. So funding from the ACS essentially was this vote of confidence that not only allowed me to perform the research that I had envisioned for years, but it gave me the status, it gave me the reputation that allowed me to get funding from the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, to publish our work in excellent journals. So I really need to emphasize that initial funding has an impact that resonates over the years. Every researcher who gets a first bolus of seed money from the ACS is being set up for success for the rest of their career. And this is something that is really an important topic in science. You need someone to take a chance on you. And the ACS took a chance on me.
Each of these women that you just heard from are currently or have been previously funded by the American Cancer Society. We are so proud to have invested in their work and know their discoveries will drive better understanding, treatments, and ultimately more cures for cancer. We appreciate them sharing with us. Funding young scientists is critical to the continued pipeline of talent in science, but so too is inspiring young women and girls to even consider careers in science. We are exceedingly proud to introduce a new program funded by each of you through ResearchHERS that does just that. According to the National Science Board, women make up only 29% of the science and engineering workforce. And the American Society of Clinical Oncology reports that only about 1/3 of oncologists are women. The new Summer Healthcare Experience, or SHE, in Oncology program will enable young high school students who identify as female with experiences, activities, and discussions that introduce them to the incredible breadth of career and leadership opportunities in the field of oncology. Importantly, this opportunity is designed especially for students from backgrounds underrepresented in the sciences. This pilot program launches this summer at 5 of our nation's top cancer centers, with the goal to expand the program in coming years. And this is all possible because of your work to fundraise for ResearchHERS. Thank you so much. Speaking of fundraising, I know it can be intimidating knowing where to start, but your staff partner has all the tools and resources that you need to get started. Tools to promote your campaign on social media, support for connecting your campaign to Facebook, and more. They will be reaching out after the program to help you get started, and we'll be there throughout. But just to inspire you a bit more, we talked with a few skilled fundraisers around the country about their keys to success and tips. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
I was turning 70 in the month of October. So instead of a commitment of $2,500, I decided to commit to raise $7,000. And went along with that commitment, I said that if I was successful in reaching the $7,000 mark during the month of October, that I would dye my hair pink to go along with the pink wardrobe that we were all wearing each day in the month of October. And it worked. Raised about $11,500 against a goal of about $7,000. And along the way, as I saw how my colleagues in the Real Men Work Pink campaign were doing, we had fun trying to compete with each other in terms of who could raise the most resources for this very important effort.
Fundraising, I know, can be difficult, but you just have to get yourself out there. There are people willing to help you. Number one, social media is huge. It is such an effective marketing tool. Plus, it's free. Also, don't be afraid to ask your family and friends for help. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know how you're raising money, what that money's for. No matter where you live, your community is full of businesses and individuals that are willing to help and willing to support cancer research.
I was able to hit my fundraising goal with the easy-to-use Facebook fundraiser connection on my website and by making personal asks to friends and family. My ACS staff definitely set me up with the tools to succeed, and reaching the $2,500 goal took less time than I expected. I'm glad I was able to play a role in the important work that is being done to reduce the impact cancer has in this world.
One of the things that we try to do in His Security is we tie together our whole entire company. We get together and we say, hey, listen, this is something that we can get behind. This is how we can give back to our local community. Are you guys in? And everybody in our company every year says, absolutely. So we put together little competitions for our employees. Whoever raises the most money in a particular month or a particular week, we give them little gifts or little prizes for doing so. And so now we've gone from me trying to raise money to our entire company trying to raise money. But at the end of the day, it comes about being intentional and being able to ask. Just simply ask.
Thank you so much for all the great tips. Hopefully you now have some great ideas for how to get started. In fact, why don't we share those ideas right now in the chat? Let us know how you plan to start fundraising for researchers and your best fundraising idea. Everything you do to raise money for researchers, 100% of the proceeds go directly to women-led research programs. That money helps us fund things like the new best-in-class paid leave for ACS postdoctoral fellow grantees, the SHE program that I told you about earlier, and the more than $156 million that we're investing in women-led research. Our ultimate goal is to eliminate cancer, and our work will continue as long as it has to. It will continue in the memory of those that we've lost, in honor of those that are still fighting, and with hope that one day we will be rid of the disease that takes too much from too many. Our work continues for people like Rachel, who graciously shared her story with us. Let's hear from her now.
I had gone to the appointment by myself because I thought it was going to be something really straightforward, and it was not. And so I spent time just driving around Old City, Philadelphia, sobbing. One, because I had cancer, but two, because I knew this boy that I met at summer camp that I loved so much. I was about to really destroy his life. And I also didn't know how I would go home and look in the faces of my children and tell them, you know, these 8 and 10-year-olds that our world had changed forever. We met with the oncologist for the first time, and she spent probably about 20 minutes explaining what a metastatic diagnosis was and where in my body the cancer had spread. She wrote down for my type of breast cancer what the treatment options were and handed me a list. And it was a really short, finite list. The cancer was incurable. I would be in treatment forever. After the silence passed for a little bit, then she said, one treatment might work for 6 months to a year, and then you would move on to the next treatment. And then my oncologist said, but this is just the list for today. And there are people in labs working on new drugs. There are patients in clinical trials. There are drugs that are pending FDA approval. And the goal is that you will never get to the end of a list because we will keep adding new treatment options. Starting 2020 was not a terrible time to be a cancer patient. And then COVID hit. And suddenly, I started hearing and reading that cancer research was really in jeopardy. A 1-year pause in cancer research could mean a whole generation of cancer treatments that don't come to fruition. That the best and brightest ideas in how we can attack cancer might be sitting on a shelf in a lab somewhere because there wasn't enough funding. It's so important to give to the American Cancer Society because the American Cancer Society is really where research begins for cancer treatments. You're really investing in that research that becomes the next cancer breakthrough. I would hate to think that we look back on 2020 as a time that we were so affected by COVID and so focused on COVID that we really lost ground in the fight against cancer. I savor every single moment that I have with my husband and my children in a way that I never did before I heard the words cancer. For my husband who, we promised each other a future, when we were 19, this future has been better than I ever could have pictured. To my children, I would say that, everyone tells you there's so much anticipation when you're waiting for your child to be born, and there's so much excitement. And that is the same anticipation I feel every single morning when you walk downstairs. It is the privilege of a lifetime to be your mother.
Rachel and so many others like her are counting on us. Research is the cornerstone of the hope she feels, despite that short list of drugs that remain for her disease. Since 1946, ACS has invested more than $5 billion in cancer research, the most of any non-governmental organization. And that's only possible because of people like you. As we conclude today's webcast, I want to thank the amazing researchers who joined us today and for what you do every day. I also want to extend our appreciation to all of you out there who were able to tune in and for your commitment to raise at least $2,500 in support of women-led cancer research. Throughout the months of May and June, you'll join about 650 other ambassadors from across the nation to create a surge of energy and investment in female investigators. For those of you who are joining us today, know that your support means so much and to so many at this critical time. So thank you all. And if you haven't signed up yet to be a ResearchHERS ambassador, now is the time. Visit acsresearchers.org to get started and sign up to join us. And now I leave you with a message of hope from some of our next generation scientists. The future of women in science is so bright, and we're so excited to see what these young women will do.
Supporting women in STEM is important because it'll help ensure equal representation within the scientific fields.
I can't wait to join the group of compassionate and skilled doctors working to fight cancer through research and clinical care.
And I can't wait to do research in health policy and create and advocate for policies that are equitable for all.
On my journey of becoming a doctor, I hope to continue doing research in order to enhance the quality of life for my future patients.
I want to become a doctor so that I can help reduce healthcare disparities amongst cancer patients.
I want to be a doctor so that I can help all patients and families fight against cancer.
I know firsthand what it's like to lose somebody you love to cancer, and I hope that never happens to anyone again, and I want to be a part of that.
I can't wait to be a scientist, and I will make the next cancer research discovery.